name is Melanie Eusebe, and I'm a consultant focusing on organizational strategy, organizational design, with a little bit of digital popped in there. I started my career in the bank. So I worked in the branch, I worked in the call center, and then I became the product operations manager for digital banking for a bank in Canada. After doing that for 10 years, and I thought I wanted to come back to the UK and be with my family here. So what I did was I became a consultant. So I went to the other side and I worked with IBM and EY as a digital operations consultant. The types of projects that we worked on were digital strategy. So particularly for financial services, digital was a new thing for them, and we were helping them create and maintain online channels. So where bankers or where banking clients could transact online, pay their bills, view their account activity in the beginning, and then also with account aggregation, some really major kind of leaps in functionality while I was working for the bank. I specialize in digital operations. So, you can have the strategist that will come in and tell you your blue sky vision of what digital strategy should be, what kinds of functionality you should be putting in, as well as the kind of the low cost effectiveness of a digital channel. However, I would help an organization in trickling down the front end into their back end to actually be able to realize the benefits. In the last 5 years, what I've seen is that, first there was this big leap. So everyone wanted to have a digital channel. They all wanted to have, full-fledged functionality. However, what happened, the economy happened as well since 2007 and the recession from 2007, which cut back on their spending. But unfortunately, I think what's happened is that they've realized that in order to actually experience kind of the full wealth of digital offering, there are several back-end changes that they have to make. So I always say this, that in terms of financial institutions, in the past, what they've done is they've had this big core banking system, and then they've tacked on systems and tacked on functionality. So when you look in the back end, you see a lot of spaghetti. You see a lot of, not even spaghetti, it's like spaghetti, tagliatelle, penne, all mixed up in the same bowl. With digital, I always say that it is a direct interface from the client between the client and the bank systems. And what you're finding now is that banks are having to invest to actually make their digital strategies happen. So they may have had all of these big ideas, but then all of a sudden we told them, oh wait, you're going to have to, implement a new kind of back-end operations with WebSphere. You're going to have to implement an interface bus, and that was a lot of money. Now on the other side of the recession, kind of coming out of it, I see that banks are actually willing to spend the money. So we're not only looking at digital change in the front end, we're also looking at, okay, how do we trickle the digital change into the back end to make sure that it's flowing through the whole organization and they're actually realizing the benefits that they intended. In order for digital change to really filter through the organization, I always use a top-down, bottom-up kind of approach. So with the top-down, it's about the stakeholder management, the key senior executives being signed on. You at least need, I would say, 2 to 3 of your senior executive out of maybe 10 really bought into digital. And when I say really bought in, I mean that their organizational unit, their organizational division really needs to be behind it. They need to be realizing the benefits. When it's only one, I've seen it happen, but it's really tough to kind of push through and drive through. In addition, I also like to do the bottom-up approach where you're looking at the frontline staff. So how are you helping them make their jobs, or how are you making their jobs better on a daily basis? So how are you making the branch staff and the call center staff, how are you making their lives easier with the implementation of kind of straight-through processing? How are you able to kind of take some of the load off of them so that they can concentrate on selling and leave your digital operation to be the focus on transacting or focus on transacting? So that when I go in, we always say, okay, top down, who on the strategic level is supporting your digital strategy, And from the bottom up, let's do a review of, what are your relationship managers doing? What are your branch managers doing? And how do we make their jobs easier? Because if those two aren't joined in, it's not going to happen. It's absolutely not going to happen. So you have to have both sides bought into the process. I think that in the beginning, because we were so excited about digital, everyone thought that digital relationships could replace an actual RM or a face-to-face or a voice-to-voice relationship. I think that a mature digital strategy will acknowledge that the digital relationship is just one of the many strands that you need to communicate with your customer. And a customer, particularly in the high net worth, kind of the high net worth value chain, so more so you're looking at wealth, corporate and commercial, they still need to have that relationship manager support. However, they need the option to be able to use digital channels to be able to interface and interact with the financial institution. So I think that, I guess in the last 6 years, as digital banking strategy has matured, you'll see that there's no longer that primary focus. There's no longer that drive to drive customers to a channel. What they're doing is driving transactions to the channel, which is a very different mindset. I think that with the maturity of digital or kind of digital banking coincided with the recession. And so what happened was that we got really excited. We thought, wow, digital banking, this is fantastic. This is a low-cost channel. Everyone's going to want to use it. No one's going to want to use a bank anymore. No one's going to want to interact with a person face-to-face anymore. And we're going to save loads and oodles of money. So, we came in and we told them these are all these great things. And then we said, okay, but actually, looking in the back end, you're going to have to spend a lot of money to make these changes happen. Whether it be, cleaning up your data, we can't even talk about data in this conversation because it would be absolutely mad. But whether it be cleaning up your data or whether it be, replacing your core banking system, those are huge investments. But unfortunately, it coincided with the recession. So that meant that pretty much no one wanted to do it. Only a few banks really took up that challenge and redesigned their platforms in the back end. But now that we're on the other side of the recession, and now that people understand that it's not just about putting a digital face on your organization, it's actually, there's a mentality of digital that's involved in terms of straight-through processing, in terms of kind of optimized data, then people are ready to, I think on the other side of this recession, people are more ready to spend in the larger investment in the back end. And particularly as well because, digital has stayed. It's not a trend, it's not a fad, it's going to be here and it's going to be here and grow. And so now organizations are even more encouraged to make a serious investment in their back end in order to be able to compensate as well as kind of capitalize on some of the digital benefits. When we've spoken to clients in the past in terms of the pace of change, what we've encouraged them to do is not necessarily focus on the functionality, but focus on the pace of change. So focus on having a platform that allows them to capitalize on new technology that's coming forward so that you're able to have a new product development or a new product launch cycle of 2 months rather than 6 months, that you're able to have multivariate testing in place so that you're able, testing out different scenarios at the same time. There are 2 case studies that I really love. I love, more on the American banking side, I love Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo was one of the best clients that I'd ever worked for in terms of their social media strategy as well. They really got it right the first time. So they didn't have an Autobot kind of responding to their tweets, they kind of putting out marketing tweets out there. They actually sat there and engaged with their customers and took responsibility for the social media engagement. And I thought they got it right. Out of all of the banks, they just did it right the first time as well. I do appreciate Lloyd's Banking Group as well, just because I saw what they went through in working with them. They made a big commitment to be one of the best internet banks in the UK, and they are now one of the best internet banks. And on top of that, most importantly, they've equipped themselves to be able to change and accommodate for their different client bases as well as what's happening in the market in general. And so they have definitely got it right. They've understood that digital banking is not necessarily about transacting, but it's about making selling as easy as transacting. And then they have trickled that down to their staff as well. If you go to any kind of Lloyd's branch, you'll see that they are extremely bought in to the digital banking platform, and not because it's just taking away work from their plates, but also because they use it themselves and they have benefits as well. I think that there's some, there's really exciting things happening in banking right now, and in the next 5 years, I would predict it's more about payment vehicles, so online payment vehicles. I think that that's a really big space. Right now, we have a lot of little disruptors kind of coming in and allowing for easier payments and the easier transfer of money. So I would hope that some of the financial institutions are going to jump on that bandwagon as well and make it a little bit easier for the everyday Joes to be paying and transferring money. Additionally, I think that you'll find banks are going to be investing more in their back end, and so they're going to be able to realize some of the benefits after the investment. So there's going to be some big spend in the next few years. I think that digital has proven itself to be a worthy channel and a good channel, and there's going to be the big spend in the back end to actually support that. Additionally, I think that some people have predicted kind of the demise of the branch, and I think that's wrong. That's not going to happen. The branch is going to change considerably. I think some banks have already started to get that right, where you see some of the newer branches, the newer HSBC branches, they have their digital environment. Virgin Money just introduced their Virgin Money lounges. So again, having that face-to-face interaction with the brand. However, also it's a fully digital environment, so they're wedded completely. And so I see that in the next 5 years, that will probably trickle down into the rest of the industry. I think that banks should feel very threatened by the new disruptive models that have been introduced in banking. So, banks, just like any kind of other organization, they started as a bricks and mortar institution, and they've had to modify themselves to be able to adapt and to accommodate the digital revolution and the digital channel, digital offerings. These organizations, these disruptive models, they have had an opportunity to come into the market at a very bad time for financial services in general, where the brand of financial services has just been, in the mud. And so they've had, that has given them and offered them an opportunity that I don't think they would have been able to take maybe about, 10 years ago, when, even though we did still have digital banking, we didn't have those disruptive models. So that being said, people do like brands that they trust with their money. People are in general very risk averse with their money as well. We don't like to change financial institutions. We don't like to change even current accounts. And so to even get a customer or to kind of acquire and retain new customers is actually quite difficult. When I say acquire and retain, I mean good customers that will give you a solid lending base because they're investing their money with you. So it is an interesting turn of play. I would hate to make predictions. However, I do know that they will change the industry. They are forcing banks to acknowledge that other customer, that customer that's not quite loyal to them, that may have a little bit of money at the time, but not necessarily kind of your big wealthy customers that all of the banks are looking for.